Great to be joined again by Meat and Livestock Australia's Ripley Atkinson. Ripley, how are you today?
Yeah, good, Ricky. Good to chat.
And the market looks like it's in reasonable shape for both our cattle and sheep producers. Let's start with the sheep, perhaps. Some big volume, as usual, going through Wagga Wagga, and generally the price on the rise as you expect it to be doing during the spring.
Definitely. So last week, last Thursday, Wagga had 36,000 lambs yarded and contributed 20% or 4,500 lambs to the National Trade Lamb Indicator. At the minute, it's actually operating at about a 33-cent premium to the national price, so it's operating at 829 cents, and it's in good shape at the minute. And those volumes certainly across the board for all lamb yardings have increased this week, and reflective of more lambs being made available to the yards after some wet conditions, certainly last week across most of the key sheep producing regions in the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, and we certainly hope people are staying safe amongst the flooding, and it could be a challenge getting them to market this week with flood warnings as we speak in North Wagga. So hopefully that doesn't dent people's sentiments too much and everyone can stay safe.
Definitely. At the minute, although sale yard yardings have been affected by flood warnings and wet conditions on farm, we're certainly not seeing that reflected in the slaughter volumes going through the processing facilities across Australia. So last week, national slaughter volumes for lamb were at 408,000 head. And even though sale yard numbers and sale yard yardings were down, we're certainly still seeing those lambs flow through into the processing facilities. So it's not actually affecting lamb supply coming into those plants.
Yeah, that's certainly good news and a good on the demand side when it comes to the sheep front. But looking on the cattle side, the EYCI is still fairly strong. It's still above 1,000 cents, even though it's certainly not back where it was, I guess earlier in the year or even coming in from last year.
So, yeah, the EYCI at the minute it's at $10.21. And it's been performing relatively strongly, really, since about early September. Remain quite consistent and quite firm, and on-farm conditions and the rain has supported that grass availability coming into spring, and the demand and competition between feeder and restocker buyers is assisting that buoyancy and its consistency in price performance. When we compare it to 12 months ago, it does have to be remembered, and the perspective, that longer-term view needs to be taken. It was coming off record. This was, this time 12 months ago, it was continuing to improve in price each week. Now, 12 months on, the demand for cattle across the yards is still there, and it's certainly reflected in restocking sentiment and buyers' interest in accessing cattle to capitalise on these spring growing conditions with some warmer weather, even though the wet conditions on farm are affecting the ability for stock to be moved and also their weight gain performance.
Yeah, I'm noticing across sort of the pricing, I know sometimes they're small sample sizes, but it does seem, whilst Wagga's price was good, for instance, it does seem better pricing's been available in northern parts of New South Wales.
Very much so. Northern parts, obviously, as many people would be aware, have been experiencing some significant rainfall events. And at the minute, when you look at the top, say, 3 to 4 to 5 performing yards, Casino, Armidale, Scone, Singleton and Inverell, all in the northern parts of New South Wales, and they're commanding quite strong premiums to that overall EYCI price of $10.21. Casino being the main example at 1,276 cents. So it's well above where the overall EYCI is, and it's obviously reflected in that demand. We know northern New South Wales is a major cattle region for the state, and producers are very keen to get their hands on cattle and access them to continue to rebuild their herds and capitalise on these good seasonal conditions they're experiencing.
Absolutely. Well, Ripley Atkinson from Meat and Livestock Australia. People can always access all that information at mla.com.au. Thanks very much for joining us today.
As always, been my pleasure, Ricky.